Working on a Simplex steam locomotive, part 27. Continuing the cleaning and painting, I show some extra parts as this Simplex has been converted to look like a Great Western Railway Prairie Tank, which it doesn't. I show the clean-up and painting of the leading and trailing wheels. I'm using Phoenix Precision Paint's gloss black paint for the wheel parts. In this episode I also fit the buffers and clean up the crosshead guides. Here's the story so far. This is on my kitchen table. I've painted the wheels, they're looking okay now. But unfortunately, painting the wheels took a long time. Painting all those spokes is really difficult to do, and it's surprisingly easy to miss one or two of them. This morning, the tins of Phoenix Precision Paint's Buffer Beam Red arrived from Blackgates Engineering, so I will now be able to continue painting the red parts of the chassis. I think also this time, for a bit of diversity, I'll paint the buffer beams as well. This locomotive has the Prairie wheel arrangement, and if you want to know more about that, please Google it. Even though these pony trucks, complete with the wheels, have been in my parts washer, and they've also been steam cleaned with my very feeble steam cleaner, they're still dirty, so I'm using this wire brush to remove some more of the grime that neither of those other processes touched. It's almost painting time. This is some Phoenix Precision Paint's black gloss. This is very durable paint, easy to apply, and it gives a good finish. I've selected a suitable brush and now I'm painting the pony truck parts. And as I'm doing that, I'm looking at the stretchers and the axle boxes and all the other parts that have to be painted. I think I'll use another method. It seemed to be taking far too long to paint this pony truck. There must be an easier way. As you can see here, I haven't even finished it. The easier way is quite simple. I'm going to spray it. This was also going to take a long time. I have some Tamiya masking tape that's very good stuff, but this is not flexible either. It is when it's thinner, but not at 6mm. So I thought to myself, I'll paint everything. I'll just paint the lot and then re-clean the wheels. Seemed like a good idea. Here's a bit of a tip. If you're painting wheels and you don't want to get any paint on the tread, some broad elastic bands are quite useful. I have done that in the past. I've turned off the soundtrack for this clip because I'm by a wide open door, and at the time of the painting, every aircraft in the world seemed to want to fly over my shed. As you can see, I'm painting everything, including the spokes of the wheels, and that includes the rims and the tread of the wheels. Once I'd finished painting the pony trucks, I brought them through into the main part of the workshop and left them on the bench for 24 hours. And 24 hours later, I'm back in the workshop. The paint seems to be quite dry. It's probably not quite hard enough yet, but I'm not bothered about that. I just need to remove the paint from the rims and the treads of the wheels. I've clamped the wheel in the chuck, the other end is supported by the live centre, and off we go. I'm using my small Proxxon motor tool with a flapper wheel. I'm supporting the Proxxon motor tool on the top slide where the tool post normally fits. But there's a problem. The flapper wheel is getting clogged up with paint and becoming very ineffective. I know, I'll try something else. What about a piece of Scotch-Brite? Will this work? Well, it seems to, but it's not very good and it's taking a long time to remove the paint. At this stage I would like to say that there's an awful lot of paint on the rims because I was really wanting to paint the spokes, so as I rotated the wheels, the spokes were individually spray painted, but most of the paint went on the rims and it was very thick. It's not too bad on the tread of the wheel. A piece of 100 grit emery cloth removed that paint quite easily, and eventually by adopting the same method on the front face, all the paint disappeared from there too. Two problems here. It took a long time, and also it's clogged up my piece of emery cloth, it's clogged up my flapper wheel, and my piece of Scotch-Brite. And now it's top tip time. I'm using a carbide tipped lathe tool held in my hand. You can use a high-speed steel tool, it doesn't matter, as long as the tool is quite sharp and is capable of scraping off the paint. Then it was a very simple job just to use the emery cloth one more time. I used the emery cloth in a long length for the tread, and then I folded it over to clean up the front face. This can be quite a dangerous job, so watch where you're putting your fingers. I finished off the job with a piece of Scotch-Brite. I want to mention something about fitting buffers to model steam locomotives. These springs came out of the 14XX locomotive that came from China. It was one that I rebuilt a while back, and there's a video series about it. These springs are far too weak for buffers on a 5-inch gauge locomotive. They'd be okay for the rear set of buffers because the driving truck is normally connected to the locomotive with a drawbar. But the front buffers are very important because during the life of the locomotive, particularly if you're running on a track where other people are running, you're very likely to have minor collisions from time to time, nothing serious. But if you ever drive your engine into the train in front, the buffers need to absorb the shock, just like the real thing in fact. Choice of springs are important for the front buffers. If the spring's too long and too thick, it won't compress very far before the buffer goes solid. So it's a good idea to experiment with different springs to see which feels better when you're pushing the buffer. So take your time and find a good combination of thicknesses and strengths. Doing it this way by using two springs that fit inside each other is quite effective. But don't forget, if the spring is too long and too thick, it will bottom out and become very ineffective at being a shock absorber. The inner spring here is a bit too long. As well as adding the outer spring, I refitted the original inner springs, which were just the right length. Before doing this, it's a good idea to lubricate the parts. This was a dry run to start with. I didn't use the oil can. On this locomotive, in common with other strange anomalies, the length of the threaded part of the buffer stocks are shorter at the rear than they are at the front. At the rear, I'm able to use two 4BA nuts as lock nuts. Nothing difficult here. Get the position of the buffer with the first nut, and then using two spanners, lock a second nut hard up against the first one. From an aesthetic point of view, make sure that the buffer heads both stick out of the buffer stocks exactly the same amount. How far do they need to stick out? Well, just have a look at some photographs online of full-size locomotives. Once I was fully happy with the spring tension, I removed the nut, applied some Loctite thread locker and replaced the nut. I don't think this is going to come loose. I think that if I didn't apply the thread locker, the nut wouldn't come loose anyway because it's held in place by the positive spring pressure. It really was difficult to clean this. I started off by wrapping some emery cloth around my ruler, and I used some WD-40 as a lubricant to try and cut through the baked-on oil. Eventually, I started to make progress. Notice I'm working longitudinally, never across, because I don't want to round the edges of the guide bars. After the coarse emery cloth, I used some 400 grit wet-to-dry sandpaper, and finally back to the Scotch-Brite to get a really good finish. On the lower guide bar, it was covered in a deposit of old steam oil, coal and ash. Steam locomotives, generally speaking, in many ways are mechanical disaster areas, but historically they seem to work very well. Without dismantling the guide bars, I really couldn't get at the part of them which are at each end. I used this wire brush fitted in my Proxxon motor tool. Personally, I find that this type of wire brush is much more effective than the other type of rotary wire brush where the bristles stick out at 90 degrees to the shaft. Whichever type of rotary wire brush that you use, it's very important to always wear eye protection. Do you see what I mean about the shape of the wire brush? I just couldn't get into this position very well if the wire brush's bristles were not like they are. This part of the bottom guide bar doesn't really contact the crosshead. And if I was wishing to be picky, which I am definitely not on this engine, I would remove it and file a little bit off before rebolting it back in position. Why did I buy this engine in the first place? Well, the answer is, it's making quite a good video series. I'm showing many of the pitfalls that people fall into very frequently when building miniature locomotives. It's starting to look a lot better now. That's it for this episode. Stay healthy, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my main Steam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.